Okay, well, hello everybody and good afternoon if you're in Edmonton or earlier time since we just passed noon. Great to have you join us today. For those of you who kind of haven't seen me yet, my name is Chris Lynch and I'm a senior director with the Master's Programs Office at the School of Business. Today's session, as part of our kind of week-long open house series, is definitely going to be focused around admissions and the application to the program and the things we look for. But we're also going to do a very quick kind of outline of our programs themselves as well. Before we get going, I will just maybe say a few things administratively first. So we are recording this session. So if you don't want to potentially show up, I'd encourage you to kind of turn your camera off and just stay connected that way. Also, just for the kind of ease of enjoyment for everybody, if you can kind of keep yourself on mute as well, that will kind of ensure it's a good experience for everybody. As we kind of go through things, Mita in our office, who I'll get to introduce yourself in a minute, will be monitoring the kind of chat as well and trying to answer some questions as we go through. We will kind of pool questions as well for the end and kind of once we get through the presentation, kind of address those more formally as well. So definitely if you have questions, either feel free to kind of throw them in the chat or keep them in mind and put them in at the end as well. And so, yeah, with that, maybe we'll just get going and get started. So as I said, my name is Chris Lynch, and I'm a senior director with the kind of Master's in Professional Programs Office at the University of Alberta and the School of Business. I've been with the office for over 15 years now, so I have a pretty good idea that I'll be able to answer sort of any questions that may come up from today, and it can definitely speak well to the program and kind of requirements as well. I also, just to note, kind of graduated from the program myself as well. So I graduated as a part-time student in 2010, which is hard to believe is essentially 11 years ago now. It definitely doesn't feel that far back. But that's a little bit about me. I'll maybe ask Aileen to just do a quick introduction of herself as well.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I hope your morning, afternoon, evening is going well. My name is Aileen, so I'm the director of the full-time and part-time MBA programs. So we might be in touch through the application process, or also once you're in the program, I oversee our academic services team. And also, like Chris, I did my part-time MBA. I graduated in 2016. So it does feel like yesterday, but it's just looking at the number, it is a ways away. So now I will pass it over to Mita to introduce herself.
Yeah, so hi everybody, my name is Mita and I'm the Admissions and Administrative Assistant at the Master's Programs Office. As Chris mentioned, I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions about our programs, feel free to just pop it in there and we'll answer it as the presentation goes on.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mita, and thanks, Aileen. So as I mentioned earlier, maybe we'll just start with a quick little overview of our different programs before going into a lot more detail around the kind of application and admissions process. And so, a high level kind of what to expect from an MBA or a Master of Business Administration degree. It is first and foremost a general management degree designed to teach students kind of the technical, analytical, functional business skills that they need to kind of go forward into management in their career. Our program also has a bit of an emphasis around the ethical side of business and ensuring kind of students are looking at the socially and responsible side of business as well. Within the program, it does kind of have a strong strategy and leadership component. There is an emphasis on developing critical thinking skills for students. And I think ultimately it is a transformative experience for students going through, whether that's simply to kind of further your career in the industry that you're in, or whether that's to make a much more dramatic change in terms of career direction, industry focus, responsibilities, that sort of thing. So for us, we have essentially 5 different degrees or pathways to completing the MBA degree. Whichever of these programs you do kind of look at or consider completing, they all ultimately do lead to the same Master of Business Administration degree. So from the kind of university and degree point of view, it is the same designation you'd graduate with at the end. Full-time, our program, it's a 20-month program, or essentially considered a 2-year program, built around daytime courses, and that's where a majority of our combined degrees would kind of live as well. Part-time takes a little bit longer to go through and complete. So it's a 3 to 6 year program, depending on kind of the course load you wish to take, and built primarily around evening courses. For somebody who has an undergraduate degree in business, we do offer what we call a fast track pathway to graduating from the degree. It can be done full or part-time. But essentially through that program, it's some recognition for the course you've already completed as part of your business undergraduate degree. We have an Executive MBA program that's more targeted towards senior individuals. So those with kind of 10, 15 plus years of experience and in kind of senior managerial level positions. And we have new for this year, an online energy MBA that's built primarily around asynchronous online courses with a few in-person weeks as part of that program as well. And so maybe just quickly a few kind of highlights of the different pathways. So with our full-time MBA, as I said, it's built around daytime courses, not necessarily, 9 to 5 every single day, but that's kind of the window when courses would be scheduled Monday through Friday. It is essentially our one program that's open to international students as well. And so our kind of cohort is typically half domestic, half international for students in the program. It is, as a full-time program, primarily designed for individuals looking to make a dramatic shift or change in their career. And so it has more dedicated kind of career support built into the program as well. As a full-time student, our sort of expectation is that not only will you be actively involved in class and with our career center as well, but also looking to be involved and kind of grow and build your network and skills outside of the class as well. So there's a significant amount of extracurricular options available. And our full-time program also we'll see students generally do a 4-month paid internship between the first and second year of the program. With our part-time MBA, focus is much more around evening courses. So primarily Monday through Thursday night, we'd have courses offered. We do have a few more intensive options for the program as well that are more 1-week intensive format or 5 full day format. So essentially a way to condense a course into shorter blocks. Typically, most of those intensive options are offered in our spring and summer terms, so between May and August. But for those intensive options during the day, you would just need to arrange time away from work. There is some career support available to students in our part-time program, but program is maybe more targeted or designed to individuals looking to grow or further their career within their own organization or with their own industry or sector, and less focused around those looking to make a more dramatic shift to a completely new area. It is a program that's kind of intended for students to be able to balance both work and life. Typically, we'll see students take 2 courses a term, which would generally mean 2 evenings a week when they'd be in class. With that, you're looking at somewhere between 3 to 4 years to complete the program on average. And kind of the general cap that students would see is 6 years from when they start the program that they'd be required to finish the program. And it is obviously, as a local program and a part-time program, made up primarily of working professionals from various industries and sectors around Edmonton. With our online energy MBA, it's a new offering in that it's new to being primarily online, but it's built off our former program that we offered in Fort McMurray and our former natural resources, energy, and environment specialization as part of the MBA. So you can definitely guess from the title that outside of kind of our core business fundamental courses, a large emphasis will be around the energy industry and pathways for growth and how to kind of optimize production within that. As an online program, the majority of the courses will be done asynchronously, which essentially means that they're on demand and available to work through kind of at your own time. There's no set class time around most of those courses. That they may have some synchronous components, but primarily designed to be completed anywhere at any time as you work through the course. does have kind of 3 in-person weeks that are built into that. One in Edmonton, kind of on our main campus, one in Fort McMurray, and one in Calgary. And the thought behind some in-person weeks is that it's a chance to bond and build stronger relationships with your peers in the program, and also a great opportunity for us to bring in kind of industry speakers, guest speakers, kind of targeted to either the government, the operational, or the more finance and head office kind of format. It is also kind of a program that's designed for individuals to complete it while continuing to work. From start to finish, you're looking at roughly 32 months to go through that program. And again, obviously a very targeted program in terms of sector, but it does give you an opportunity to build kind of relationships and contacts and networks outside of your own firm. And it is open to students from all across Canada, not just those in Alberta. Okay, 2 more programs for a quick overview, and then we'll get into the admission side of things. So our Fast Track MBA, as I kind of touched on earlier, is designed for somebody that has an undergraduate degree in business. Compared to the 20 courses that our MBA would typically require for completion, with the Fast Track program, that's reduced to potentially as low as 12 courses. And essentially it's just designed to give recognition for kind of courses you've completed in your undergrad towards some of those business fundamental requirements. It can be done full-time or part-time, or even a mix of both. So some full-time study, some part-time study. It is, as part of the course, one where we do require students to have at least one international course as part of their degree. That can be an exchange, or we have different exchange partners that offer anything from 2 to 3 week long courses to kind of a full 4 months on exchange. That can be one of our shorter kind of 1 to 2 week long study tours that our office arranges, that are built around company visits in different locations around the world. And given some of the challenges with travel in the last year or so, it's also just an option to do one of our international business courses towards that requirement. I said earlier, like, our Fast Track MBA can be as few as 12 courses, could potentially be up to 17. So with this program, we will look at kind of 5 key business areas in your undergraduate degree. So we would look at financial accounting, finance, business statistics, organizational behavior, and marketing. And in kind of those areas, we'd be looking for you to have a grade of at least B+ or higher in the intro or higher level courses. For any of those subjects where you don't have that, have a grade of B or lower, we will then require you to complete a comparable course in that subject as part of the MBA. And so that's when it could potentially be up to 5 additional courses you'd be required to complete. So up to potentially 12 for the degree itself. And so kind of the last program to then just quickly touch on is our Executive MBA. It's a program that's designed for more experienced individuals. So kind of the typical student coming into our Executive MBA has 15, 16 years of professional experience behind them, does have experience kind of managing and leading within their organization. And so it's certainly a kind of more experienced cohort that would be coming in. The program itself is a fairly intensive one. So it's still, it's essentially a full-time program that students would complete while continuing to work full-time as well. It's built around 4-day blocks of class that are held once per month. So that would be a full day in class, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, on any given weekend in a month. And spreads out over essentially 20 months for kind of those intensive courses. We do have a 1-week intensive course that we run just before those normal courses start. And then we end with an international study tour that's part of the program as well. So from start to finish, it's about 22 months to go through and complete our Executive MBA. Within this program, we do offer executive coaching directly to students, what can be a bit more tailored or targeted towards your kind of own interests or own goals. And it is a cohort-based program, so you'd be with the same group of students from start to finish working through the program. So that was fun. That was a quick overview of kind of some of the different programs. I'm going to quickly have a sip of water and then move on to talking a little bit about kind of our admissions process and kind of how we evaluate the applications. So at maybe the most basic level, sort of how the process works is students would first, find the program that they're interested in at the university, and then complete the online application through our Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research. Once an application is submitted, it would come to our program. If it's for the MBA or any other business master's degree, we would kind of review and evaluate that application. And then kind of depending on the decision we make, if we do want to go forward with admission, it is our Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research that would send out all formal admission letters to any master's student and any PhD student at the university. So while it's our program, like the MBA, that would make decisions on who to admit, it is ultimately our Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research that sends out formal admission letters. So that's just a bit of background and kind of an understanding of how all graduate admissions work at the university. For kind of that middle piece, the probably the most important one, where it comes to evaluation and review on our end, kind of 5 sort of steps that go into that. So once an application has been submitted, our office, we will kind of do an initial review, which will mainly involve just going through, making sure that all kind of documents that are required as part of your application have been included, making sure we do have both reference letters and kind of the other aspects of the application that we require. Once we have kind of gone through and have everything in place, the kind of next 2 steps are built around first the academic evaluation, and then maybe more of an experience evaluation of what you bring into the program. On the academic side, what we're really looking for in going through the academic pieces is essentially just confidence that you would be somebody that would be able to do well within the MBA program, be able to complete both the kind of quantitative and qualitative courses, and would be in a position to succeed academically. The last thing we want to do is set somebody up for kind of failure or struggle coming into the program. So that's kind of the key focus that we have at the academic evaluation stage. After, we have confidence somebody's going to be able to do well in our program, we would really shift our focus and look a lot more at the experience and kind of what somebody would be able to bring into the program. And so this is where we'd look at not just the professional experience that you have, but extracurricular experience, volunteer experience, what your references have to say about you, what you're hoping to kind of gain or take away through the program. And so once we have kind of evaluated both the academic and the experience side, if we think there's potentially a good fit there, we would move on to an interview stage. So we do 2 interviews for everybody that we are admitting into the program. The first is a shorter online video one, followed by a more direct face-to-face, or I guess virtually face-to-face interview with a member of our admissions committee. And then kind of once the interviews are done, we will kind of then do a final evaluation and come to a final decision in terms of admission to the program. We really do look to have a fairly diverse cohort of students. So we look at not just diversity in terms of background, but in terms of experience, in terms of motivations and kind of goals for the program as well. I think ultimately, we really do look to have a very collegial cohort of students that are looking to not only kind of learn and grow and develop, but also kind of share some of their experiences with the group at large, and really looking for students that will not only do well academically, but add to the overall experience for everybody in the program. And so with that as kind of a high level overview, maybe a bit more, we'll kind of just go in a bit more detail about all of the different kind of steps that we ask for as part of the initial application, and then a bit of an overview of the kind of process itself as well. So on the academic side, the kind of 2 items we would look for would be, transcripts in prior education, and then a GMAT, a GRE, or an executive assessment. In terms of evaluating experience. That's where we're going to look for a resume first and foremost that kind of outlines the different experiences that you've had. We're going to ask for letters of reference that can help kind of speak to some of your strengths and what you'd be able to contribute. And we will ask for a statement of intent, which is really just an outline about what you're hoping to gain or take away from the program. Those are pretty common across all of our different degree options. But I think the maybe kind of key thing to take away is that for our different programs, we do sort of look at or emphasize things a bit differently. And so for perhaps our full-time program, we might put a bit more emphasis towards students' kind of academic strengths. Whereas for our executive MBA, we probably put more emphasis on the experience that somebody has coming in. And that spectrum kind of shifts a little bit for the different programs, just essentially looking at how far out somebody is from completing their undergraduate degree or prior education. We would probably put more emphasis on kind of the non-academic parts of that application, and the closer somebody is to having finished their undergraduate studies, perhaps more emphasis would be put towards the academic credentials that a student has. And so now we'll kind of walk through all of these in a lot more detail. So in terms of academic entrance requirements on the kind of transcript side, we do require you to include all of your prior studies at the university level. In general, for most students, that's an undergraduate degree. That could be, diplomas. That could be a master's degree, PhD degree, any subsequent degrees or studies that you do have. We do essentially require you to include all of that within your application into the program. Unlike a lot of other graduate programs, the MBA is perhaps a bit unique in that we do look for students from a wide range of backgrounds. There is no requirement for students to have a business undergraduate degree, and every year we see the vast majority of our students come from non-business backgrounds, whether that's arts, science, engineering, health, education, law, etc. We are somewhat unique in that the majority of our student body at the master's level does not have an undergraduate degree in business. On the academic side, so we do, as a master's program, have some basic admission kind of standards. So we look for students to have a minimum GPA of 3.0 out of 4 on their undergraduate study, which works out to a B. And depending on maybe where you finished your degree, we do have different equivalencies that we'd look for. So if it's from other countries, we can definitely kind of outline what we'd be looking for. And from a university that maybe doesn't follow the 4-point grading scale, we do have kind of equivalencies and conversions for that, and can kind of let you know what we'd be looking for on that scale. At the end of the day, for us, GPA is based on your most recent 60 credits or most recent 2 years of study. Again, recognizing that different countries and different universities might have different scales. If that doesn't apply completely or clearly, we're happy to kind of help you understand what we'd be looking for and let you know kind of what your GPA would be. It definitely can be a combination of both graduate and undergraduate study, depending on what we'd have to look at to get to that 60 credit or 2-year mark. So it's entirely possible that might be a year of a master's degree and a year of an undergraduate degree. For some students in the past that have had degrees that have large number of non-graded courses, like a PhD that's maybe just entirely thesis or dissertation based, we may actually have to go back to kind of a master's degree or undergraduate degree as well. But we do look at essentially your most recent 60 graded credits or most recent 2 years of study for determining GPA. All of that to say, I alluded to earlier, we do put a lot of emphasis around the experience that a student would also bring into the program. And so with that, it is possible for us to consider students that maybe don't meet that undergraduate degree or minimum GPA requirement. With that, we would be essentially looking to consider students under a life achievement category that exists for graduate studies at the university. With that, I'll kind of walk through the specifics in a minute, but essentially we would be looking then at putting more emphasis either on, the standardized test part of an application, so a GMAT, a GRE, or an executive assessment, and definitely putting a lot of emphasis on the professional experience that a student would have as well, that would be considered under kind of life achievement guidelines. And so the kind of scale down here is not completely exact. So there is a little bit of wiggle room around that. But typically, if your GPA would be between a 2.7 up to a 2.94, because a 2.95 would round up to 3. But between a 2.7 and a 3, we'd be looking for you to have about 5 years of postgraduate kind of work experience. Between a 2.3 and a 2.7, looking for closer to 10 years. And for a GPA below 2.3, or for those that don't have a formal undergraduate degree complete, we'd be looking for a minimum of 15 years of experience to be able to consider you for admission through life achievement. With the kind of application and kind of what we'd want to see, we do require, as I said earlier, transcripts for all post-secondary education. So that includes not just formal degrees that you've completed, but official transcripts for transfer courses you may have taken, exchange courses you may have taken, and any incomplete or in-progress courses that you may be in now. So even if you let's say, graduated from the University of Alberta, but had done a single course towards that degree through Athabasca, we would need a formal transcript from Athabasca for that 3-credit course. If you've done exchange courses or prior study before kind of going on to finish your degree, we do require transcripts for all post-secondary education and institutions that you've studied at. And then this is perhaps more relevant depending on kind of where you graduated from, but we do require degree certificates if your transcripts don't state that you were awarded a degree and when you were awarded it. And so most institutions in North America, most transcripts do include degrees awarded and dates conferred. So in those cases, we wouldn't need you to include a degree certificate as part of the application. But if your transcripts do not include that, then we would need essentially confirmation that your degree was granted or awarded. And kind of last thing I'll say before a bit more detail is that for us, we do require essentially online documents or virtual or PDF documents for the initial application. And it's only after you've been formally admitted that we would then require hard copies of documents to be submitted. And so in general, most admissions are simply made conditional on the receipt of official or hard copy documents by some date in the future. So typically for admission into fall, the kind of condition on the admission would be receipt of hard copy documents by the end of December. So kind of 4 months after starting the program. But that can also be worked out if it's a bit more difficult to arrange. And so for the online application and applying from North America, we do require documents to be in a PDF format. We do require that they are issued within the last year. So if they're more than a year old, we're going to ask you to acquire or get new transcripts to be submitted. The university as a whole prefers official transcripts. So it means even if you are to go and kind of download or order official transcripts from your prior institution, you'd have to essentially scan them and then include them as part of the application. If you are getting unofficial transcripts, which from the U of A would be even if you went into Bear Tracks and kind of downloaded a transcript, that would be considered an unofficial transcript. We do look for it to have the kind of date that it was printed on, your full name of the institution, the grading scale, the different courses that you took, the years of attendance, and kind of the credits and grades awarded. If you're not sure if the transcripts you have would be appropriate, you can definitely reach out to us or even just submit the application and we can let you know if we're going to need something else. The only other thing I'll say specifically to University of Alberta graduates is that we wouldn't need you to submit hard copy documents of University of Alberta transcripts or degrees. We can obviously pull that on our own, so that's not something we need an official hard copy to have follow later, but you would need to include like a transcript in the online application itself. For students that have done education outside of North America, depending on where you went, the requirements might be slightly different. We still would ask that everything be uploaded in PDF format. We will, in general, look for transcripts to both be in the original language and a certified English translation. And that includes both transcripts and degree certificates. We do also ask that your kind of transcript submission includes the grading scale used by your university. And then a few extra things to note. So for students from India and Pakistan and potentially a few other countries as well, if individual semester-wise mark sheets have been issued, that is something we will ask you to include as part of the application. For students that have studied in China, I'll also mention that in addition to the degree certificate, we also will ask for the graduate or graduation certificate to be included as part of the application as well. And then the kind of final thing I'll note in terms of a certified English translation, that's only required if documents are not issued in English by your university. So if they're issued in kind of an original language and their own certified English translation, we take both. If they're only offered in English, then we definitely would not require a certified English translation of an English document, which I think only makes sense. And so I think at this point, I'm gonna stop talking now and pass it over to Aileen to take over.
Great, thank you. So I'll be taking us through the second half of our presentation. So just covering off the remainder of the admissions requirements and things like that. So this next slide is talking about our standardized test requirements. So we do have requirements depending on which program that you're applying for. Typically, we found that how a student does on these standardized tests is a good predictor of their success in the program. And it also allows us to evaluate students across a common point so that we can see how they're scoring in relation to other students. So with the executive assessment, I know there were some questions in the chat as well, but that is for students only applying for the Executive MBA program. And the GMAT or GRE would be required if you're applying to our regular full-time or part-time or online energy MBA program. So it is a required component. There's no preference in terms of if you submit a GMAT or a GRE score, we accept both. Typically, the majority of students will submit a GMAT score to us, but we certainly accept GRE as well. You know, if you are looking at what we would look at for exemptions, we do have a couple of times when we wouldn't require somebody to submit a standardized test score. And one of those would be if you hold a PhD from a North American institution, or if you completed your Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Alberta and obtained a GPA of 3.0 or higher over the last 2 years or 60 credits of study. Also, some degree, combined degree applicants, we may look at other test scores such as the MCAT instead of a GMAT or GRE score. You can just get in touch with our office. If you are interested in a combined degree, we can just confirm whether or not we would require a GMAT or a GRE score. And then also some executive MBA applicants. So if you did have specific questions about your unique situation, you can email us. We'll put our email address in the chat, but it's mbaadm@ualberta.ca. And we're happy to look over your profile and just confirm whether that's a required portion of your application. In terms of, I guess, what the GMAT is about, if you haven't already taken a GMAT or GRE test, it is sort of business and MBA specific. So right now the exam is being offered both online and in person. So you can select the option that's most convenient for you. Some people do like being able to go in person and write it, and many cities are offering that. Also, there's an online option if that works best for you. So there's 4 sections to the GMAT exam. So quantitative section, analytical writing, integrated reasoning, and verbal. And typically we're looking at an overall score of 5 50 on the GMAT score to sort of meet our minimum requirements. So as of April 8th, we have it noted here on the slide that the analytical writing has been offered now for the GMAT exam. Prior to that, it was not. So the 4 sections are offered now starting April 8th. So I guess about a month away from now. And your score is valid for 5 years. So if you're somebody that maybe you don't have your work experience yet, but you're thinking about applying to an MBA program in the next couple of years, you can certainly write your GMAT exam now and your score will be valid for up to 5 years. So that's kind of nice to give you some flexibility if you just want to get that portion out of the way prior to gaining your work experience and applying for the program. Again, I mentioned we're looking for a 550 or higher. That's your overall score on the GMAT exam. And in terms of preparing, I think it really comes down to how you learn best. So whether that is attending an actual course. So we do have a prep course that's offered by the Faculty of Extension. So you can sign up for that. It is available online right now. They have their next session coming up, I think, pretty soon. So you're more than welcome to sign up for that type of class. Or if you prefer to just self-study and you're confident in your abilities to learn everything yourself, you can sort of get different materials and practice the different practice exams and things like that to prepare. So the website here on mba.com has different sample questions and practice exams that you can go through just to see how you're doing and maybe the sections that you need to work on a little bit more and the sections that you're doing quite well and maybe don't need to focus on when you're studying. In terms of the GRE, so this is for graduate study, including business. There's 3 sections for the GRE exam. So those would include the quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and analytical writing. And again, we're looking for a score, an overall score that's in the 50th percentile or higher. Again, typically people will do a GMAT exam, but also, so if you are looking at doing the GRE, just aim for that 50th percentile or higher. In terms of the executive assessment, so again, this is for our Executive MBA only, and there's the 3 sections listed here, so quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and analytical writing. And this is sort of just essentially measuring your business skills and your preparedness to enter into an Executive MBA program. So the assessment is a little bit shorter than completing the GMAT or GRE, but we do find that it's a good tool to gauge how well a student will perform in the Executive MBA program. Moving on now to your professional experience. So Chris had mentioned earlier, this doesn't have to be industry specific. Again, we're really wanting to bring in people that come from diverse backgrounds. So, you know, being able to talk about your experiences and bring in real world examples is an important part of an MBA program. So, you know, your undergraduate degree, you're maybe learning more theory, if you would like to say, and then in an MBA program, you're really wanting to apply some of your experiences from work into class and then vice versa. So we're looking for a minimum of 2 years of postgraduate work experience, and that would be for our full-time, part-time, and online energy MBA programs. And you see our averages here, so what typical average years of work experience would be for each of our programs. And I will also mention for Fast Track, we're typically looking for a minimum of 3 years of postgraduate work experience. So with the work experience, if you're looking at a combined degree, we do have some flexibility there. So we will look at sort of your volunteer experience and anything else that you've done academically if you're interested in some of the specific combined degrees. So again, if you're curious about whether or not you would have the experience for the MBA program or a combined degree program, just let us know and we're happy to again go through your profile and let you know where you would be sitting. And you know, we want to see your career progression. So what have you been up to? If you've been working for 10 years, hopefully you've been able to move from, say, an analyst to a senior analyst role or things like that, and just progressing within your company or within your industry, or maybe also making lateral moves, so to different types of industries. So that could also be seen as something that is valuable. So really, what have you been up to and what types of roles have you been in? And I think all of those things are really important when we're looking at what you'll bring to the in-class experience in the MBA program. So another important item on your application is your resume. So this is just listing some, I guess, do's and don'ts of what will make your resume stand out or just easy to read. Typically, you know, as a general rule of thumb, I would say if you have less than 10 years of work experience, your resume should not be longer than 2 pages. So for us, we're not looking for a technical resume that lists every single project you'd ever done or every publication or things like that. We're really looking for a snapshot of your career in 1 to 2 pages. So ideally listing this in chronological order, and then also we would like the most detail in your current role. So really, what have you done? If there's specifics in terms of teams that you led, how many people, and if there's specific projects that you really want to highlight, do that in your most recent or current job. In terms of things maybe to avoid, technical jargon, Chris and I are both MBA grads. We are not going to know, I guess maybe Chris would, but I'm not going to know different jargon for different industries and things like that. So just keep it simple, something that we can understand, and maybe not listing unnecessary info. So we don't need things like your marital status or anything like that on your resume. That's not something that we will be looking for. And don't submit an outdated resume. So oftentimes we see that somebody has submitted a resume where there's no sort of end date, or we're unsure what happened between this year and this year. Just do something that's up to date and is really a reflection of where you're at the time that you submit your application. And then I guess just overall aesthetically, keep your resume short, and the font should not be too small. We don't need a magnifying glass. Just make it easy to read for us, so that really within that 1 to 2 pages, we have a snapshot of your education and your work experience to date. And letters of reference. So this is sort of the last item of your application. This is a really important aspect of your application, because up until now, everything that you submitted is sort of from your viewpoint or things that you can offer. And the letters of reference offers a third-party review, you could say, of your work experience and how you work in teams, your leadership abilities, so on and so forth. So we will ask for 2 letters of reference as part of your application to any of the programs that we've been speaking about today. We would prefer professional references. However, we will accept academic or references from any volunteer experiences that you have had. What you'll do when you're completing your application is you'll enter their contact information, their name, email address, so on and so forth. And once you submit your application and pay for your application, our system will automatically forward them an email prompting them to submit their reference letter, and as well as to attach an additional document if they would like to do that. We do have an MBA specific reference letter template. We're happy to forward that to you. It is available on our website, but if you have any problems finding it, we can forward that to you, because we find that that gives a bit more of the information we're looking for, opposed to the general form that's used for all graduate programs on campus. So certainly ask us if you'd like us to send that to you. And yeah, essentially once they submit everything, it gets sent back to us. Typically, we're usually waiting on references or maybe your GMAT GRE exam as the last items of your application. So if you're wondering, I've submitted everything, why is my application not being reviewed? Likely it's because we're maybe waiting on one or both of your reference letters. So we can always follow up with them if we need to do that, to get everything in. And I think that covers that slide. And in terms of who you'd like to ask for your references, really we want to focus on people that have worked closely with you. So somebody that has managed you or supervised you in some capacity, opposed to, just for example, like a CEO of a company that maybe hasn't worked directly with you that often. We would prefer somebody that really can speak to your abilities, opposed to the title of somebody. So be careful when you're selecting your references. Make sure that it's somebody that knows you well and will provide you a good recommendation. So again, just listing some things here, they'll be able to hopefully speak to your performance and your strengths and highlight what you'll be able to contribute to the MBA program. So if you're using an academic reference, obviously you'd want that to be a professor who knows you well. So whether that's somebody who's supervised a research project, or that you were a TA for, or just someone that knows you beyond just sort of being a person in their class. And if you are an entrepreneur, so if you own your own business, you likely don't have a supervisor or somebody that maybe manages you directly. So for that, you're welcome rather to include clients as your references. So we'll certainly accept those, as well as suppliers. And then maybe other individuals that you've had a long working relationship with. So we are flexible. We want to just make sure that we're getting a good third-party review of who you are and what you'll contribute to the MBA program. Oh, your statement of intent. I was wrong. That's not our last item. I think this is the last one. So statement of intent is a really important document for us because this allows us to see a little bit of who you are and your personality. And you know, usually in about 1 to 2 pages, you're going to want a forward-focused document on you know, what you're going to bring to the program. I think we'll get to that in the next slide, but it really helps us to get to know you a bit better. And it's a bit more personal than your resume and transcripts. And there's not really a specific requirement or thing that we're going to be looking for. However, we would ask that you keep your statement of intent to 1 to 2 pages, like I mentioned, and it's your chance to be creative. So I know sometimes for us, it's nice to read one that's a little bit different. And I know we had a cartoon that was in a part of someone's statement of intent, and that was interesting to read, or maybe sharing sort of a story or something like that are all types of things that would be great. In terms of what you're going to want to address in your statement of intent, really we're looking for why you're wanting to apply for an MBA program, what you're going to get out of the program, why is the right time for you to apply versus waiting a year or 2 years, and why the University of Alberta versus other options. So what is it about our program specifically that you're interested in? Because as you know, there's lots of options that are available to you. So we want to be a good fit for what you're looking for. And then, you know, we also want you to be a good fit for our program. So we want people that are going to contribute to the in-class experience. And there's a lot of group learning and projects in the MBA program. So somebody that will bring a unique background, a diverse background, and, you know, be also participating in things that are outside of the classroom, such as clubs and committees. So say you're interested in joining Net Impact, for example, that's one of our student groups, then including information about that and how that's relevant for your career goals, what you're hoping to do in the future, and ideally just maybe not giving us a regurgitation of your resume and just being focused on where you're hoping to go and how the MBA will help you get there. Now that we've gone through your application package, I'll just be walking us through what the interview process will look like for the MBA program. So this will be across all of the programs that we spoke about today. And the first step will be a Kira video interview. So that is an online video interview platform that we use. And there'll be 3 verbal response questions and 1 written question there. So as you can see on the slide, you'll have about 30 to 60 seconds to prepare your response. And then you'll get about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes to record your answers. So it is very quick. You have to be pretty quick on your feet, but just know everybody's in the same boat. So we don't always expect a fully, you know, polished answer that you'd be able to provide if you had a couple minutes to rehearse. But we want to see how quick you're able to respond and what you come up with to some of the questions. And then in terms of the written response, you'll have 5 minutes to prepare your written response. So that will be the entirety of your Kira video. It shouldn't take you too long. And there's also links to sort of test out your computer, make sure everything's working okay, and that you're set up and ready to go prior to completing the interview. And then if that goes well, we'll be inviting you to complete our final interview, which is typically in person. For those that are located in the Edmonton area, international students, we would usually be doing those virtually. However, right now we're not conducting any face-to-face interviews, so it will be face-to-face virtually right now for this interview. We'll use either Zoom, Google Meet, or Skype. Typically, like we have a Zoom account, so that's usually what we've been sending out on our end. And the interviews usually last 30 to 40 minutes, and it's really a chance for us to just get to know you a little bit better, address any questions that we had that came up through your application, and ask you, you know, specific questions as well as general questions. It's also your chance to ask us questions. So if you have specific things that you were wondering about the program or any other things that were on your mind, you are certainly welcome to ask us those questions. So really they're designed to assess your overall fit for the program and just make sure that we're bringing in the right person and that we're the right fit for you and that everything is a good fit all the way around. In terms of once that's complete, typically we will have a decision to you within 1 to 2 weeks. So after your second interview, the admissions committee will meet and go through all the aspects of your application, like the documents you've submitted, and then as well as your 2 interviews. So that's typically the timeline that you'll be expecting. You will be notified through email of our admission decision. And then if we decide to admit you to the program, we forward that recommendation to the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research. They're just doing a final check of your application. And typically they'll be getting back to you. They'll offer you your official admission letter in about 1 week after we submit that to them. Their processing times do vary depending on where we are in the calendar year, but that's sort of the timeline. It's usually quite quick, so hopefully there's no issues there. And then in terms of orientation, so we do have our orientation that will be running in August, September. It will depend on the program when exactly that's going to be scheduled for, but if you are applying for the fall 2021 intake, you can expect that your orientation will be in August. In terms of actually applying, so there is an application fee. The application fee is $100 Canadian to submit your application to our program. All of the applications are administered by FGSR, or the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research, and all of your documents are submitted electronically, sort of like what Chris mentioned earlier. You'll just be having copies of your documents for your application. If you are interested in applying for our fall 2021 intake, these are the deadlines for each of the programs that we have. And I'll just note that if you're interested in the full-time MBA program, you will have until April 15th. So that deadline is a little bit sooner than our domestic deadline for the full-time program. And then with the Executive MBA, we do have a bit of an extended deadline each year. So June 30th would be your deadline to submit your application for that program. And I think that concludes what we're talking about today. I just wanted to highlight, these are the rest of our upcoming sessions for the rest of the open house. So please take a look. And if there's anything that's of interest to you, maybe after our talk today, you think, oh, I really want to apply to the part-time program, certainly sign up for our part-time and student mixer. But that's the list of the rest of our sessions today. So thank you everyone for listening. I know now we'll probably transition back to some of the questions that were popping up in the chat, and Chris and myself are happy to answer those.